So this new moon in Capricorn on 13 January 2021, very early here in Central Europe, is all about Saturn. This is Saturn's new moon, as Saturn rules the lunation, the new moon, by domicile and term. So it doubles up with its rulership. And the cold realities really setting in of the early part of this decade, Earth 2021 is Saturnine. It's a moment to remember that we survive through endurance, through hard-won ingenuity, and through the hope and the promise for a better tomorrow. All right. Glad to be here. Glad to see you. Glad to be discussing this cool, pun intended, lunation. This is a time right now in the sky where all planets, all 7 traditional planets, come back to and are ruled by Saturn. Saturn is the final dispositor of our skies. And all planets are actually in a Saturn-ruled sign except for Mars. Mars is in Taurus. But everything else, Venus, the Moon, the Sun, are in Capricorn. Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn are in Aquarius. And so Saturn has taken over. It's not surprising to see themes of Saturn right on the front page. Themes of restriction, of access to digital communities, themes of the government coming in to subdue maybe citizens that are out of the bounds that the government has set up. This new moon is very emblematic of that energetic, and it will be a shot, a whole dose of Saturn, not only this lunation, but then that next new moon, which is, I use the term lunation for a new moon. In syzygy, it can be a new moon or a full moon. But that next lunation in February is also all Saturn. So we've got about 6 weeks here of heavy doses of Saturn. So just get prepared for it. You know, Saturn will teach us how to, live lean, will teach us how to have discipline, and will teach us how to suffer. And there's great dignity in suffering well. There's a whole dignity to it. And suffering like adults, like mature, spiritually centered adults. Mars is exalted in Capricorn, and Mars in Taurus, it's the only planet it's not in a Saturn-ruled sign, though its dispositor Venus is in a Saturn-ruled sign. Saturn and Mars are applying very, very close. It's like 5 degree minutes to each other. The Saturn-Mars square is applying, and so it's very supercharged here during the moment of this lunation. And so that's a big theme as well. The tension between acting, how to act, how to use your Mars when it's such a restricted environment. I see videos online, I'm seeing news of people not being able to go outside for maybe more than once a day in some places. I think this is in the UK, I saw a video. Folks, getting stopped for like drinking coffee because they came out that second time, even though they were alone and maybe distanced. And whatever you think about that, I don't want to get into whether that's good or bad, but it's clearly Saturn. It's clearly Saturn restricting the behavior and the desires of the populace. One metaphor I want to encourage and just throw out here is prison training. Very common when people go into prison or jail, they start training. That's really all they have to do. They will do push-ups, sit-ups. There's the yard where they can play games. And so often you see prisoners that have a very chiseled body. The other thing they do is they apply themselves during that period of restriction to learning skills. So it's also not uncommon to see like a prison lawyer, the jailhouse lawyer, a prisoner who learned the law and started writing petitions on behalf of other prisoners who just got good at it from reading books. When we're restricted, there can be this great opportunity to focus our energy, our Mars, onto something that we couldn't focus it on had we not been restricted. For me here, I would be maybe out at dance clubs or, I would definitely be in the cinema to watch movies. It's one of my favorite things. But that's all closed in the city where I am. And so I've had to focus more on, building my YouTube channel and doing astrological writing and giving readings. And so there's an opportunity to work with how we're hemmed in. That hemming in opens up something, opens up a pathway that's unique, and that is a unique opportunity. So that's, I think, how we can work with the Mars in Taurus and the Saturn in Aquarius squaring each other, both ruling this new moon, is that we can figure out how to deploy that power in a way that will serve us when Saturn doesn't rule the roost, when Saturn isn't dominating the skies. Remember, Saturn is 3 years in a sign. There's some times when Saturn has no power for like years at a time, but that's not now. And so we can train and prepare and put our energy to things that will serve us later on. Turning our attention to that. How are we training in spite of the restriction? It's not only that Saturn is confinement, this fixed modality is in a way a confinement. It's something that wants to stay in the energy a long time. It doesn't want to deviate. And so there's just a lot of preparing for the long haul here, settling down, buckling in, and working with what we can for a long period of potential restriction and fixity. Certainly this summer we'll get a little bit of relief when Jupiter comes into the mutable Pisces, but the nodes, remember, at the end of 2021 are going to come into the fixed axis, the Taurus Scorpio axis. So 2022 will have a big dose of fixity as well. It'll be a different energy. Now we've got at least another few months of this heavy fixed Saturn energy with Jupiter there. And so I think we need to prepare. That's why I'm thinking about prison training, because they aren't sometimes being released for 4 or 5 years. Sometimes they're never being released, but they're still training and learning and writing and preparing. And there's all kinds of resources out there is the thing. We're living in a time where really anything you want to do, almost anything, you can do. I mean, I didn't know how to edit video. I learned that this year. I just pulled it up and, took some classes online, found some teachers, but I learned and I committed to it, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't always fun. It was a task that I knew I had to do to get the result I wanted, which was to communicate with you out there and communicate into the world, and I wanted it to be a certain quality, so I committed myself to that process. You can find all kinds of apps if you want to do training. I know there's like apps for body weight training that you can just do in your apartment. You can learn languages online. You can write. Just spend time writing. So use the tools that are available and seek them out. You can even just type into your search engine, I want to learn this, and just start exploring. But it's a way to use the Mars. While we're fixed, while we're locked in, while we're, inhibited, we can deploy it with what is available and with the egress that's been given to us. And it's very powerful. The other big point I want to make about this new moon is that Venus is the only planet co-present with the sun and the moon, because Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury are in aversion. And Mars makes that nice trine by sign, so we like that. But I think there's a Venusian component here that is worth considering, because that energy, even though it's 15 degrees away or something, it's still mixing. They're still roommates, you might say. Think about times in your life when you lived in the same house as someone and that roommate has another room, but you go out into the kitchen and their stuff is everywhere, or you go into the living room and they're playing video games. You're mixing energy. Venus and Capricorn. One, it is the day triplicity ruler of Capricorn. Remember, Capricorn's a night sign. It's the things we do at night. The moon is the other triplicity ruler. It's the night triplicity ruler of Capricorn, and Venus is the day triplicity ruler. And so those two triplicity rulers are co-present, are involved here. The moon having dignity and Venus having dignity. We need each other. We need other people right now. It's winter. We need to buckle down, get with people that can help us, get warm. I think about body heat when it's so cold out. It started snowing here the last few days. It's beautiful. I woke up and saw the white everywhere, and it really made my day. White, the color of Venus in the older texts. But Venus is that we need each other. And when it's cold, body heat, you think about body heat. We get with my body, my moon, and other person's moon, we could rub together to stay warm. If it was like a crisis freezing situation, that's one strategy to survive. But it's a metaphor of how much we need other people, and we need touch. If you have people you can safely touch, maybe just do some hugging. I always loved when I had that available, asking someone, hey, can I have a hug? One of my favorite things is just get that hug, So if I have people that I'm comfortable asking, I will. So this is the other component, the Venusian side, is what relationships are we using right now while we're fixed in this kind of separation and this Saturnian limitation? How are our relationships serving us and helping us get through? The sun is the consciousness, it's the perceiver, it's another side of the self, maybe the spiritual side. And with the moon mixing the body, the physical side with Venus, I do think it underscores this idea of touch and relationship to help the kind of spiritual perceiving side of ourselves. There's no way around this. This new moon's a difficult new moon. It's not an easy energy. Just to say it, it's just not easy. Sometimes it's like, how can I be a better person? How can I be a better friend? And just get like those articles, 5 tips, or the books I love right now too, with how available they are. Google Books or Amazon Kindle. You can find really cheap books on any topic you want by experts in whatever field you're trying to learn. And there's some good relationship stuff out there about how to be a better friend. I'm finding I have to make time, and it's like I have to do it deliberately. It feels better that way. And I think that's some of the Venus and Capricorn. It's deliberate relationship. It's structured interaction. I've been using a lot of the WhatsApp and the Instagram messaging where I can just leave voice messages. To me, that's a safe distance, but I can still stay in contact and hear voices, and it doesn't take as much time, which is kind of very Saturn right now. It's like working nose to the grindstone, working hard. So that might be just something to think about. How can you structure the interactions? But we need people. What's the healthy way to do it? The mature way to relate. That also might be another keyword here for Venus and Capricorn, and for the Capricorn energy that will be injected during this new moon and that will sustain for about 2 weeks. When we have relationships, it's almost like we can't have a relationship unless there's an authenticity. If we're behind a veil and hiding things, it's very hard to have intimacy and let people in and have a true exchange. And Saturn can sometimes bring that challenge of, the walls that we put up to protect ourselves from others. There can be good reason for that. I also think here there's a sense of acknowledgement of the difficulty and just accepting and admitting maybe to someone else, hey, it's been hard. This reality is tough right now. That admission can be a very powerful tool of connection and of intimacy. We connect through our pain. Empathy requires someone to become vulnerable. Something true and real can be seen, and then another person can feel what I'm feeling because they see it. Unless I share it, there's no way for empathy to be exchanged. And so that's, I think, part of this moment too with the new moon, is being open to discuss the pains and the difficulties and the challenges. 2021 winter, the world after 2020, the lockdowns, the changes, the shutdowns, and that's continuing into 2021. The challenges with the illnesses, viruses, mutated viruses. It's a really serious thing. There's a place and a time to admit pain and feel pain. This is like let's admit the pain and feel deeply the challenge, new moon. Venus can also be like pleasure, right? And even laughing or enjoyment. We laugh so as not to cry, feel the grief and sadness and the emotion, and then smile because it opens up something real for the first time. It's like, wow, this is really real. I think crying is like the most real thing there is, because it's almost involuntary and it cuts really deep to who we are. But I'm thinking here about just acknowledging and kind of coming up a level if we can, going back into grief and sadness, then coming up and realizing there's kind of an absurdist nature to life. Life is but a dream, row, row, row your boat. And sometimes I like to do that. And I was thinking this week about a year ago when I was in China drinking orange juice, hanging out with my friends. I think no one had any idea just how crazy life would get. Even the astrologers that were hyping up Pluto Saturn, and they were right. Let's give them credit. They were completely right. But even those astrologers, if you asked them, couldn't foresee just how intense, just how impactful, just how absurd and different 2021 is and what we went through in 2020 was. So that is something that I think when we see it, it's almost like all you can do is laugh, like, wow, borders are closed, there's no music anymore. New York, I've got friends in New York City, some of you might be in New York, they say it's just so different there in terms of the flow of people and just how the city is operating. But this absurdist approach to pain and change and grief, I think is useful to just flow in and out of, not as an avoidance tactic, but as a Venusian tactic, kind of laughing and a playfulness. Sometimes a playfulness is what's needed when things get really tough and grave. If you've seen that great movie, Life is Beautiful by Roberto Benigni, he does such an excellent job of bringing comedy and absurdism and humor to a situation that's so dark. And that movie is a great example of, I think, of a Venus-Saturn energy here. There's certainly a Mercury side, but Mercury is with Saturn, very close. So I think we can say that Mercury could play that role here too. I'm focused on Venus because it's co-present with the new moon and it's in Capricorn, but Mercury would certainly do that as well. There's an elegance to reality. There's this sort of divine elegance. I'm looking at a tree right out here, this beautiful tree, there's no leaves, there's white everywhere. And it's that Fibonacci spiral in a tree, they've done the mathematics. And so there's this great elegance in our reality, in the structure, Saturn, of our reality. Elegance, Venus, so it's Venus, Saturn. And that can help alleviate the pain and the challenge, is just appreciating this divine elegance, this divine miracle, as we have to stay fixed in this very Saturn moment for the next couple of months. From the traditional perspective, there's no points, 7 traditional planets or the lunar nodes, in a water sign during this lunation. So we're deficient water. It's a very dry time. It underscores the Saturn nature. Saturn's a dry planet. It's cold and dry. So, this might be less about that water feeling. Water is fertile. It cleanses us. It's productive. That's not what this moment is for. We're not trying to, get ready for the party tonight. We're trying to just get through the day. I think here about farm life. Saturn can signify farmers. And often farm life, first of all, they're harvesting during the summer and fall and saving during winter when there's nothing to grow. So they prepare for the winter. But then it's a question of getting through the winter with your provisions, making sure you have enough, and then getting through and surviving until you can get, a new season of planting, a new cycle of planting is possible. That's how I'm thinking here without the water. We have to just get through things. We're not growing things. We are surviving. And that doesn't mean, this is more of a metaphor. It's not saying we can't be working right now to make things or do things. I mean, I'm trying to make and do things all the time. That's encased in this Saturnine metaphor that's descended and kind of fallen on the whole of reality. The head of in America, the head doctor, was saying maybe this next fall concerts will be back fully. Who knows? They've been saying that for a while, but that's what I mean by just that there's this kind of pall of Saturn that's in the backdrop, this tonality of it. The seeds that we're planting here, I think, can come to full fruition. Like, let's say when international travel's back, we can fly to conferences and see each other, talk to each other. That's not happening now. But that's what water is. Like, water's connective, productive of emotion, connection. Water binds. But I do want to talk about this fixed star that the new moon's conjoined. It's called Peacock. It's in the Pavo constellation, and it's this little peacock. It's this little peacock. So a god was changed into a peacock or something. The myth doesn't seem too complicated, but the symbolism, I think, is clear for how I'm looking at this moment, which is the Venus that I've already talked about. It's another side of the Venus energy. The peacock is that great show of coloration to relate to others. This is a theme of Saturn: grief, loss, and sadness. In the earliest texts, it can signify a lot of things, but that's one of its core significations: grief, loss, sadness. Beauty is important in that context. And I know that, like, for me, when I think about times I've been down or been dealing with lethargy or dispassion, it can help tremendously just to get up and trim my mustache and wash my hair, put on some clean clothes, and just get fresh. A little action like that can become so important to the inner feeling of confidence and clarity and hope and a vision for the future. My uncle always used to tell me, is your room clean? You just asked me that, is your room clean? I would complain to him. And often it was just in a wreck. And there's something to just ordering up the space and beautifying the space as a reflection of the inner and the outer. They can often reflect and interact. And so that's what I think this peacocking energy for this new moon is about. As we're confronted with some real difficulty and challenge, both collectively and I'm guessing personally, because we're in the collective, how can we commit to ourselves? Commit to the dignity of appearance, giving ourselves the dignity of a put-together look. And this isn't about vanity, mind you. This is about function and about a reflection of the truth that is you are a child of God. I'm a child of God. As a metaphor, if you're not religious, that just means that you have power. You have value, and that's a truth. No one can take it away. And so because that truth is real, I even have to honor that truth with my behavior, and this peacocking is a way to do that. It's a way for me to send a message to the world, hey, I care about me. And not only I care about me, I care about you too. So it's a way to kind of show others that we are responsible, Saturn, right? And I think that is a big, big theme here with the Venus copresent to the Sun and Moon in Capricorn, and with this star peacock. And I even think about funerals, where sometimes the clothing of the funeral is a real way to honor the deceased. People get special tailored clothes, black clothes, so that they wear a special uniform to reflect what's happening and what they're feeling. I just saw, the reason why I was thinking about this, I saw on Twitter there was something posted from a museum, and it was like a count's funeral garb, and it was this perfectly tailored suit. I was like, wow, those clothes are amazing, so beautiful. But it's the beautiful Saturn sadness and how we use Venus to deal with our sadness, to grieve, to cope. Venus is the appearance. And even the flowers at a funeral, it's customary. You really would bring flowers and put the bouquets everywhere in the family's home, on the gravesite. So Venus can be very, very important. We often think about it only with respect to joy and happiness and hope and pleasure. But there's another side of how Venus can be used when it interacts with these different planetary energies. And when it comes to Saturn, we use the outside physical appearance to reflect the sadness that Saturn can bring. And this is actually a great lesson in just astrological delineation. This is kind of astrology 101. Planets mix together, their energies mix together. And my advice if you're studying out there is really master And it's infinite. There's actually no complete mastery of this, but combinations of planets, when they combine, how do they mix? And just explore that, because it's essential to almost all astrological work, is the combination of planetary energy. And they all mix together. They all combine to make something different, just like two colors. Yellow and blue make green. You know, this great mixing. And in the older text, Valens calls Venus the beautiful colors, right? Mixing of colors. So I think we can use Venus also in this way as astrologers. We're mixing these energies. It's very Venusian. If you're struggling out there, think about, put your smile on or not, or keep your frown on, but give yourself, like, I'd love to see, you know, your best clothes, or what clothes make you feel good. You know, what clothes make you feel good right now? Wear them, you know, post them online. I see on Twitter, people are saying like, I don't have a party to go to, but here's my party dress. And it's beautiful, I love that. Boom, you get a like. All right, let's get some symbols. Let's pull some cards. So, you know, that's my big thing, the Venus of this new moon, and the difficulty, right? Mars, Saturn, I've talked about it so much. That's the big story that dominates the new moon, the restriction of action. And then, yeah, make sure that when you're restricted and sad, you know, you're putting on clothes that honor you and your true power, your divine power and the gifts that you've been given. So let's get this first card. This will be... Okay. Sometimes you shuffle and it's just, you can't really unshuffle there, it takes a second. All right, Queen. I like seeing a Queen. Queen of Spades. I love seeing queens when we talk about Venus, because that can often signify Venus, can signify queens. You know, it's especially Venus, Saturn. And this actually corresponds to Aquarius, where Saturn is. So I think maybe it's pointing me back here. I don't think I talked too much about Aquarius in the video, but maybe we should just give a little bit of a reminder, just how much the newness, the new order, the new Aquarian order is impacting our reality, and just be prepared, you know, be prepared that, hey, things could get different. You know, a new administration comes in America, they can pass a lot of laws quickly. So we might have a lot of new laws to sift through. And some of them will be good, some of them you might not like, but I think we're on the precipice and the cusp of some new change, and it's going to stay for a while, the fixed energy. 2020, Saturn in Capricorn was the initiation, and now it's the fixed kind of implementation of this new energy, and how digitized it is. And if you want to bring the Uranian side, maybe I can use that to mix it up a little bit. But the modern ruler Uranus, and kind of the explosive, the innovation, the scientific, that's all part of this moment as well, and Mercury science as well. So I really like the mercurial connection to Uranus when we discuss Aquarius. But maybe there's some breakthroughs in the technology of your field, or maybe you're involved in technology and you can explore those. Even medical breakthroughs, maybe you're dealing with some kind of medical issue and you find an innovative treatment. You know, this could be something that this energy is pointing to. But, you know, I also think this has been a big theme as well. We're coming up on this climax of the first part of 2021, which is a new moon, 11 February, 6 of the 7 traditional planets in Aquarius. That's really been hanging over everything I've been doing recently, because we're building to that. Mercury is now with Saturn and Jupiter. 3 of the 6 planets that will be in Aquarius are there now. And then we've got 3 others, 2 of them at this new moon are coming. So maybe that's what it's pointing to. But yeah, I also would say maybe think about how, has there been a woman in your life that has helped you recently? When we see these court cards, they can sometimes be about a specific person. So maybe there's a woman or someone that's been queen-like, even if it's a man or a non-gendered person, a queen-like energy, a queen-like person in your life that has embodied this. Maybe someone that's got a more of an intellectual side, more of a thinking side. Sometimes this can be a cold energy. The Queen of Spades is depicted sometimes with a severed head, carrying around a head. So maybe there's a colder female that or male, or, you know, entity that you've been dealing with that is part of your recent struggle. And so that's another way to look at it. Okay, second card. Let's get the second card. So anyhow, yeah, just hang in there. You know, these are the cold months, the January and February, and they're the height of respiratory illness season. Even before this year, you look at about the last 9, you know, the last every year going back, it's a cycle. This is the height of it, of all the viruses of all kinds. So that's a big part of what we're going to go through too, is as that's climaxing, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult. Okay, let's see here. Next card. The Hermit. So we get a Hermit energy. And it fits with everything I've been saying about the isolation and what to do in the isolation. You know, the Hermit has that light, and it's that light of hope. And I think the whole conversation we had earlier in the video about what to do when you're cut off, like the prisoners doing their training or their skill learning, this is, I think, that light of hope as we're in the hermitage of Saturn. The hermitage that can be represented by Saturn. And what's not sleeping on me too here is that this is an earth sign, that dry earth sign, Virgo. And so you have, this completes a grand trine. If we want to say we've got the new moon in Capricorn with Venus, Mars in Taurus, and now we have the Hermit with Virgo. It's representing this grand earth trine. So that's something to think about this week. What is your earth element like? How are you grounded? Are you feeling? How is your home environment? Is there a garden in your yard that you can spend time in? Is there a path around your home that you can go to, or a natural enclave near you that you can retreat to? That can sometimes help with idea generation and can help with just getting through and with endurance. I find just sitting down and looking at the birds. I love birds and I love seeing them, especially the pigeons and the little birds that can hop and that aren't afraid of you. Love just coming up to them and just seeing them. So it gives me an energy to feel nature, to be with nature. And so I think that here, it's just how are we going to retain light? How are we going to keep that hope alive, even in a time of great difficulty? That's what the Hermit can tell us. All right, that's the tarot reading. Thanks for being here. You can always, by the way, book readings with me, sjanderson144.com. Click here to schedule a reading right at top. I look forward to reading for you. And have a great week. Have a great new moon in Capricorn, and an enjoyable time wherever you may be. Keep warm, and don't forget to play in the snow or get outside into the snow.